Hey, Mike,
Yeah, what you
guess
got?
guess what I heard?
What'd you hear?
Oh, man, what accent was that? Guess what I heard?
Guess
Oh
what I
my
heard?
gosh.
I don't know. It's like I don't know, like a Jewish New Jersey deli
Irish.
owner. I don't know. I don't know what it was.
I heard that a wiggly body makes wiggly sounds.
It does. Be still when you play. Rule
Sick.
19.
I gotta say, you got to give that some context, don't you?
That's rule 19, man. We
What are
tell it mainly
they
to
talking about?
beginners because they move all over the place and arms are going and they're trying to get out of their chairs. And so
Welcome
that,
to Ask Mike, and what are you talking about today?
yeah, this is my NCIS Gibbs uh, podcast on his rules. If for you guys, do you watch NCIS?
I listen. There's so many of them now. I started out watching Chicago or one of the cities, and I just got lost at some point. So
Oh,
no, I don't anymore.
okay. The NCIS is the Navy one, and Gibbs
Right.
had a rule. I think there's 43 rules, and you can buy them on Amazon. There's a poster, but he
Oh
would
yeah.
just yeah, he just say like, I think it's like Rule 3. There's no such things as coincidence. Like Rule 11 is like always clean up your own mess. But he always
Yeah.
had these rules when his investigators. He was in charge of all his
Is that the
investigators.
Mark Harmon character? Is that
Yes.
Gibbs?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
Gibbs. Pops the people on the back of the head and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But he had his rules. So if they did a sloppy job, he'd say, Rule 11, and they all had the rules memorized. So now this happened before NCIS, but I always get kind of a chuckle when I see Mark Harmon going through his rules. And even to this day, he's not on the series anymore, but they still
Reference the rules.
reference his rules. Yeah, they still reference the rules and give him credit for them. But these are band rehearsal rules. These are my podcast notes for my band rehearsal rules.
Okay.
And we'll post this with our man in the chair, Rick, and that way you can use it. And I think I might have it in a Word doc. That way they can take off what they don't want and
So
add
let,
what they,
let me
they
ask you
want
this. So
to.
as we delve into this, before somebody goes discipline, are we talking about
Nah,
discipline again?
not at all.
This is not the same as classroom management rules.
This is hopefully after you have good management.
Perfect. Okay.
Hopefully, but it's a set of 21 rules, and this went inside every folder. They
Every
knew
music folder for the
every
kids.
music folder
Yeah.
had the rules in it. Even my beginner program, they had the rules in because we had like binders, like sheet protectors, and that was in one of their sheet protectors. So I could just say the rule, and I'd say, everybody look up the rule.
By number. Yeah.
Yeah, look up Rule 12, and they'd look it up. Said all pickup notes have the same intensity as the notes which follow them. So they just know that rule. Now, none of these rules are 100%.
Right.
But I guarantee you, if you can get your kids to understand 21 things, which is a lot, then it's the major things. And this is called down. This is a document I had from some West Texas giants, the Gary Garners, the O.T. Ryans, the J.R. McIntyres, the Bill Woods. And
Right.
they had this deal they did at Team A one year called like the West Texas Rules. And it was like 60 or 70 of them. And every one was golden.
Right.
But I knew I wasn't going to be able to have kids really access 70 rules. I think it was better for a band director to access those, but these are for the kids. So
Okay.
the first two kind of go hand in hand.
Well, let me
And
ask you this. Are you going to give them to us in what you consider priority order? You need to learn this first and then go to the
now
next one.
I think it all depends on what's being done at that given moment.
Okay. I'm just putting my ears in the right perspective as you're talking.
Yeah, so it's not an order of what's more important. It's in order of just get it on a page and assign a number.
Right.
And if
And
we're
these are
working
things that
on
will help. Yeah.
if we're working on a Bach chorale, one thing might be more important than the other.
Got it.
You know,
I got it.
The first two, 1 and 2, go together, and it's the one that we do a lot in warm-ups on lip slurs that we have to correct. When changing notes from low to high, play the high note softer. Same way a good vocalist pulls the mic away from their body when they
Sure.
go up in the upper register. And the inverse of that, I guess you might say, when changing from high to low, play the low note louder. And acoustically, the audience will hear it correctly, but you have to convince the kids that the students, performers, whatever you want to call them, that it's going to sound kind of weird on their end of the stand. It's going to sound like an exaggeration, but acoustically, it'll sound like the notes are equal if that's what your concept is, to
Sure.
make them equal.
Okay.
The number 3 and 4, I guess they kind of go together. They're worded the same, but they are kind of different. And some of these are just really obvious, but you just have to call attention to it. If they have a really ragged start to a note, I can just go Rule 3. And they
Okay.
know that's breathe together always. Instead of going, now how do we make the entrance of the note correct and sound good to the audience?
So you're talking
Oh,
about
yeah,
preparatory
the
breath.
prep breath. Yeah. We breathe together always to start a phrase. There's not an exception to that. There's not one kid breathing for 4 counts and one kid breathing for 3 counts. If we have to define this is going to be a half of a beat of breath, is this a 2-beat breath in marching band? Is it 2 double breaths? I've
Right.
done it with 2 quarter note breaths. Go play. Whatever it is, we do it together always. Now, always is kind of a dangerous word, isn't it? It's like
Sure.
never, but that's the goal. That's the goal. If we go for perfection, we might accidentally meet excellence. You know what I mean? We got to, in a perfect world. Number 4, release together. Always.
Always.
Always. Yeah, the beginning of the note, the end of the note. In the middle, of course, you have to sustain the note and match pitch, etc. Another rule. But it's like a good movie. I would tell the kids that a good movie has a good beginning, a good ending, and a good plot in the middle. If you watch the whole movie and has a bad ending, we call that a bad movie.
Right.
If it has a bad beginning, we just turn it off. If we're on Netflix, we just go, I don't want to see this. So a note's the same way. All 3 of those items have to be done as well as possible,
Right.
to see if you can do it. Number 5, match articulations and like passages. That's an important one, especially I say in all music, but in marches, man, that's a biggie. We might have kids tongue two, slur two, tongue two, another kid tonguing all of them, another kid slurring all of them. They need to be thinking about Rule 5. Rule 5 is match articulations and like passages.
Okay.
Okay. Number 6, this is a cool one. I like this. Stay musically active during the rest. Don't let your mind wander. Because a rest is not for your brain to rest. A rest is really a bad term for that. A rest is simply silence within the music.
Right. It's
You're
still
per
important to the music.
Yeah, we're performing a rest, but, that's a hard one to battle because kids see 8 measures rest. They're thinking, I got time to go make a sandwich,
Right.
Yeah.
Get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I've had kids that have like 30 measures rest. I'll catch them pulling out math homework. So,
And that's what I'm going to say. I think that's a great rule for some of these pieces that we play where whatever section has a lot of rests
yes.
to disengage. And I was really bad. I'm going to tell you so you can speak to me, use me as your example in this. I was really bad that if we played a song enough times, if we rehearsed it enough times, there's a good chance that I had an audio cue coming from another section that
Oh,
made
yeah.
my brain go, oh, yeah, get back in the
Yeah.
game here.
Oh, the trombones, I'm about to come in. I think we all sort of do that it's, and what kids and you're exactly right, what kids hate the most, and I'm guilty of this at times, I think every director has been, let's say the horns have 38 measures rest, they come in, see if the band play 37 measures, then you cut them off. And you talk about and you don't think about it, and you don't realize that all the horns go, oh,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
they're not blurting out anything. It's just this sigh of pain coming out of the French horn section or whatever.
And there's plenty of
a cymbal
YouTube
player that's
videos
been
out
there
there.
for 128 measures, cranked and ready for that cymbal crash.
And let's go back.
Yeah, and they're calling
That's
you
so
everything.
funny.
They're calling you everything but a band director under their breath. Okay,
Yeah.
so be careful. So
But that's
be
a good time
active.
to say, rule 6, rule 6.
Rule 6, yeah, Rule 6. And sometimes if you got the kids really engaged in it, you can say Rule 6. Someone say it for me. Raise your hand. They'll raise their hand. Tell me Rule 6, and they'll say it by memory, or they'll just read it off the page.
Right.
Either way, it's brainwashing. I'm sorry.
Sure.
It's brainwashing. Match pitch from section to section and octave to octave. If we're playing within the section, first we have to listen to ourselves, then our trio, myself, the people on either side. Then we have to listen to our section, then to how do we tune and blend with our family of instruments? How do we tune and blend with whoever's playing at that moment in the whole band? There's so many things to think about. That's why band, orchestra, and choir kids are so intelligent. They have to do that.
Process all that. Yeah.
Yeah, they have to process all that. One really, I keep saying like important thing is if it's like some kind of God-given 10 commandments or something. But there is a difference in the word tuning and intonation.
Okay.
There's a vast difference between the two, and we use them interchangeably all the time. Tuning is getting out my trumpet and matching a frequency to make the tuner lock in, or you play your trumpet, I play my trumpet, I match your frequency.
Okay. That's
That's
tuning.
that's tuning. Intonation is me playing in tune on the range of my horn. Playing a concert C scale and making sure the low D's in tune in relation to the major third to the F sharp. Is the A slightly sharp, 1 and 2? Do I need to kick out my slide? You see
So
what I
it
mean? It's making my horn play in tune within my horn.
I got
So
it.
the A is exactly the correct distance from the F, and
Could I
the
say it
A to a C is a minor third. It's exactly like a barbershop quartet.
could I say it knowing that certain notes on my instrument are, by nature out of tune?
Yes.
So intonation is knowing how to play my horn in tune, even with all of the just, whether it's a trumpet D or the low D or the, the E, we know
Mhm.
they're gonna so knowing how to play my instrument so every note is in tune relative. That's intonation versus getting a
That's
tuner out,
intonation rather than tuning. That's intonation.
then
So we
concert
can
F, concert
say
B flat. Yeah.
the, trumpet tuning is not correct.
Right.
The trumpet soloist had some intonation problems.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, I see what you did.
There's a difference. The trumpet soloist has no tuning problems because they're not tuning to a frequency pitch. They've got intonation problems in there. Just maybe a way to think about it that'll trigger the kids' brains where they'll think more about that process, you know?
Cool. Well, I didn't mean to define your rule, but
No,
I
no,
wanted to make
no.
sure
I'm glad you are because that'll give some insight to the people listening. It'd be quite dry just to read rules 1
and
through
I also think that
21.
octave unison is one of the toughest things to tune in the world.
Oh God, yes. Yeah.
So,
Take
uh,
all the upper woodwinds and put them down an octave on that big chord, and it solves a lot of problems. No one will ever know. If you got a really good group, it'll be all right. And kinda going
right.
back to that tuning intonation thing, I know if I'm doing a clinic, it's gonna be a whole 'nother level of education if none of the trumpet's third valve slides move.
If they don't work, right?
They don't even work. They don't even have keys on them. Or if none of the clarinets and saxophones and flutes know their chromatic fingerings. And I'm
Right.
going, "Well, are you using chromatic E flat on it?" And they kinda look at you like you're from Mars. Like,
Chromatic
"What?
what?
What?" Now you can play E flat 2 ways. "Huh? We only learned one way." And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a matter of you just in your mind as a educator, you gotta go, "Well, we've got another level to go through because we're
Right.
gonna never be in tune unless we teach the right
And fight
alternate
not to look at
fingerings."
the teacher you're working for.
Yeah, and those woodwind players, those good ones, man, you will see them fighting to their last breath on a chord, changing fingerings.
Yeah.
Because they're finding that exact if I put down third finger, right hand, and use the palm key up here, that's it. I got it. That's in
That's
tune now. Or if you
that's
see a
awesome.
kid just go, this finger,
Well, I
yeah.
hear people talking about the reason we have open hole flutes and you can roll your finger a little bit here. I'm
Oh
like, "Whoa,
yeah.
that's way I'm glad I'm a
Oh,
trumpet player."
yeah. Yeah, I can't, I play flute about as well as a Christmas concert beginner band flute player. I own
Ta
a really
ta
I
ta
own a note the
ta
whole flute.
ta.
Yeah, yeah, and I can play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, it's amazing, but if they're not ahead of me by Christmas, they're not practicing, okay? But you're right, on a good piece of equipment, you can adjust tuning, and that brings in a whole 'nother podcast. Why do we push kids to intermediate and professional horns? Because inherently, they play better in terms of intonation, and you can vary the intonation
Right.
easier on a professional horn
It
than you
gives
can a
them the
beginner horn.
opportunity to do that
Yeah,
that a
I've got a
beginner instrument doesn't. Yeah.
yeah, I've got an old G Bugle 2 valve from the old DCI days. That thing's a tank. Man, I play a G scale on that thing, and it's like, "Oh my lord." I have to fight every note to force it into tune, even with a grease slide that I can move like a trombone slide on the
That's
back.
funny.
So the better horn will help out with all those problems, okay?
Rule
Um,
7, Mike. Rule 7.
that's
Match
rule
pitch.
7. Yeah, match pitch from section to section and octave to octave. And that can be a whole lesson for the day for your band. Number 8, a simple one. They can equate to this one easily. Posture should be tall with shoulders over the hips. Boom.
Okay.
They have to sit tall. I like to do it where if you're seated correctly in your chair,
You're
you
safe.
should you
This is
should be able
concert
to.
band as well as I was
Yeah,
thinking
well,
that's a marching
I was
band rule, but
saying no, but I was saying if you're seated correctly in concert band, and I do this to my beginners, they should be able to stand up out of their chair without contorting their body. It should be able to do it just with their legs. Like, I know it's a Zoom meeting, but if I'd seated correctly, I should be able to stand up. If I've got my shoulders over my hips, I should be able to stand up correctly just by pushing down with my feet and be able to
It's
stand up
funny.
if I'm
You started
back.
talking. You see me adjust my posture real quick.
Yeah, that's right. Better sit up. Yeah, better sit up. Yeah, and so sitting on the right part of the chair, we'd always say we had those winger chairs that has that little bump on the front. We'd say, "Put your rump on the hump," and they love that. I say, "Put your rump on the hump," and then I would stand on the chairs in beginner band and walk behind them on top of the chairs because there better be enough room behind their little sixth
I
grade
can't say
bodies.
why did they even put backs on
Yeah.
those
Well,
chairs? But
I guess they're easier to stack, but that way even fat old Mr. Lunney can walk on the back of the
that's
chairs
funny.
without hurting a young person or hurting myself. There's enough room where I can walk from chair to chair and go behind them, and that gets their attention real quick because then they're like they're looking around. They get your rump on the hump, but
Put
you
your rump.
Yeah, put your rump on the hump. Okay, that's number 8. Posture should be tall. So we always expand our rib cage and we put our shoulders over our hips. So we could go over 1,000 things, the angles of joints and blah, 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 blah. But that real simple rule fixes 90% of any posture issues. Okay. Number 9, when taking a breath, feel cool air move over the tongue. Cool air is fast air.
Okay.
If you
I can
burn
go
your
with that.
fingers on the stove, you're going to go, that's cold air.
Right.
Cold air, fast air, same thing. If you want to fog up your glasses to clean them, you go, that's warm air. That's warm air because it's slow. Okay. So, and I know we say we want a warmer sound, but here's where the brain goes, boom. To make a warm sound, you must have cold air.
Okay.
It must be cold air. You must move fast air to get a warm sound. Someone might blow back on that one at me, but I don't care. That's my rule, and I like
It's
it.
my rule.
It's my rule, and I'm sticking to it. That's rule 9. If you don't like it, mark it off. It's a word file.
So
Okay?
funny story on that. I'm a glasses wearer, not all the time, but I am, and
Yeah.
I'm forever being smudgy. And
Yeah,
so after 30-something years, I'll take them off. I say, "Would you hear that?"
yeah.
And most people don't know what, because when she does, she goes.
Yeah, that's funny.
Anyway, warm air.
And like I use and it works great in trumpet sectionals because we always have to hurr our trumpet bell before the mute,
Right.
or the mute won't stick. So we say, like when you put in a mute and they go, yeah, never do that when you play. We never want to fog up the sound.
Wrong
when you
air for
play.
playing. Yeah.
Wrong air. We're going to go with fast air. Okay.
Cool.
This one, I learned this from my college professor and marching 3 years in DCI, John Simpson. This is one of his rules. When you're articulating, the tongue should move up and down, the tip of the tongue, never back and forth. Yeah,
I'm trying it in my mouth.
We got all the listeners out there when this shoots out trying to articulate.
Because I've never thought about it before. I mean,
Yeah, because when I articulate correctly, my tip of my tongue's between my top teeth and the gum, and I go, and the tip of the tongue goes straight down to my bottom teeth, and then it resets. And in our inappropriate sloppy articulation, go ta and move your tongue back, and it goes ta, 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 and you'll hear that guttural ta, ta. You'll hear that in the band.
but even in our cos and double and triple, it's still straight up and down.
It is taka 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 taka. And the middle of the tongue's going up down up down. Front of the tongue's going up down like a seesaw. Taka taka taka. It never goes toggle 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 toggle. It's real guttural. Yeah, like it's a real guttural sound. And boy, for whatever reason, maybe that's just one of my pet peeves, Derek, but I hear it immediately, especially in marching bands. It's like, low brass, stop that what? So when you move your tongue, make it go straight down. And then I'll have them just play a concert F, and it's a different sound. It's amazing. Yawn with the back of your throat and use fast cold air, but yawn with the back of your throat. And all of a sudden, it's a whole different sound. It's a game changer if you can get them to do it. It doesn't fix everything, but it is a game changer.
It's a good rule.
It's a good rule. Rule 12, more of a march rule, but it applies to everything.
We skipped number 11.
Oh, the tongue should return to its natural position during rest. So when you tongue, you don't reset your tongue and get ready, tot, tot, tot. You go.
You don't leave it up
ta.
at the back of your teeth, right?
Yeah, and then immediately before you articulate the next note, the tip of your tongue goes back to set position. Ta. Because if you leave your tongue up, it's going to make a real tight, tense sound. It's going to make all your neck muscles get real tight. And I learned that the hard way because that's how I articulated incorrectly as a junior high kid till Greg Miller he said it more politely, but it was kind of, "Hey, stupid, what are you doing?"
Right.
As a 8th grader. It was like, "Well, this is how I tongue." Well, that's not right,
It's
you know?
also easier to enact rule number 9 if your tongue's not in the way.
Yes. Yeah, if your tongue's up against the roof of your mouth, it's really hard to move cool, fast air. You're like a stopped up hose at that moment. Yeah, it's kinda like throwing up through your nose at that point, okay? It's gonna be a rough situation. That stuff's going where it's not supposed to go, okay? Pickup notes, rule 12, pickup notes have the same intensity as the notes which follow them. So if you have a pickup to a measure, you never play the pickup note super soft and the first note of that measure it picks up into fortissimo.
Ta-da!
And in marches, here's where they screw you up in marches for you listeners. They will put it like mezzo piano all the way through the second ending of the first strain, and then the second strain will start forte, but there will be a pickup note going into that
Grace, yeah.
strain. And so a lot of people will think, well, it still hasn't changed to fortissimo. But the
Okay.
the rule is the pickup 99 times out of 100 should be the same intensity as the note following it. In fact, if you want to err to the side of being conservative, I would make the pickup note a little stronger just to give you that little extra edge of confidence. But if nothing else to the audience, it should sound like the same intensity. Otherwise, it disappears.
Right. I
If
got
the
it.
audience can't hear it, the composer should have never written it. The composer wrote it for a reason. So we have to
We
make sure
say
the
that a
audience
lot, don't
hears
we?
that. Yeah, it seems common sense, but it's like, we lose sight of it when it's a day-to-day slog, Ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da. Here we
It's
are,
one of my
check
favorite
roll,
Mike Lunney words, a slog.
41 interruptions by the high school secretary coming over the PA, and we forget these things. I've been there, man. I've been there, okay? Here's a great one. Number 13, tone quality should not change from note to note. Does
Right.
it? It does. I
Yeah.
mean, unless you're Doc Severinsen, you know, but you know what
Sure.
I mean? If you're playing
I
a
do.
G above the staff on trumpet or a G in the staff, you should strive to make that the same tone quality. That's a
Agreed.
tough one. So in order to make that happen, it's easy to say, "Hey, rule 13, make it happen. Make it so, John Picard." You
Right.
know, make it so.
Make it so.
Yeah, but you have to kind of give them the physical attributes to it. You have to do something different with the inside of your mouth to make that tongue quality go from octave to octave. For me, as a brass player, I've got to make sure to arch my tongue more to make the air move colder and faster, to make it the same tone quality as when I play a low note. For a woodwind player, it's different fingerings, but it is also, they call it vocalizing.
Right.
Vocalizing how we, what we do with our throat and our tongue and the inside of our mouth. And that gets real technical, and I'd always get like specialists, really great woodwind players to
Right.
come in, and I'd learn from them because I didn't know. I
Right.
just thought you pushed the buttons down and made the reed vibrate, you know?
It's just a woodwind instrument.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I've seen so
Yeah. I swear to you, I didn't realize I had woodwinds till the 3rd year of teaching. I just kind of ignored them completely. I was like, "Well, whatever," I don't know. And then about my
change the
3rd
name
year,
here. 2
I
old
was like,
trumpet guys.
yeah, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess we have to figure out what those guys are doing." Okay, rule 14. Rule 14 seems so obvious. The fingers and tongue should move together.
What?
Bum, 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 bum. Yeah. When you articulate the tongue and when you want that note to start, that has to move at the same fingers and tongue have to move together. Okay. And you hear that but up, but up, but up, but up, but up, but up, but up. When their fingers are ahead of their tongue or their tongue's behind their fingerings, and you hear the flip, 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 flip. I call them woodwind brass flams. So we don't want any
It's only
woodwind brass flams, and so that's their job back there. They have flams and Radamacus and whatchamacallits and Swiss Army triplets and whatever I don't, they make up words and we just go
Flamadiddle.
guess. Yeah, flamadiddle riddles. I don't know. They have all these cool language and they speak a different language and they do their thing. But as woodwind brass players, we should never have a flam,
So
you
let's
know.
let's not digress too far, but how do you fix that? How do you get somebody to think that way?
We're almost to it, but it's rule 18. Give me a
Okay.
chance.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll be
Number
quiet.
yeah, but I'll jump down to it because these rules are not in priority, but remind me we gotta go back to 15.
Okay.
Rule 18, play slow to play fast.
Okay.
So you practice slowly to be able to practice fast. So if you're
Okay.
doing
That
that,
makes sense. That makes
yeah,
sense.
So you practice slowly, you crank it down. I don't know how many times in concert band or marching band, or let's say concert band, a march is 120, we'll play it at 55. It is painful.
Yep.
But you hear every attack, every release, you hear every articulation. It's like looking at it acoustically under a microscope. And then you slowly inch it up. It's like boiling a frog 1 degree at a time in the stove.
Right.
And the frog's so dumb, like we are as musicians, it doesn't realize it's getting hotter. They eventually just boil,
Right.
But if you threw a frog into a 240-degree
It would jump right out.
water,
Yeah.
it would jump right out. So just like musicians, start really slow. I learned this in DCI where the opener would be like 140 beats a minute, and we'd learn it like at 60. And I have to play musically and march it at 60 beats a minute, which is painful.
Yeah.
But then you just slowly inch it up. But the kids know because you explained it to them. But Rule 18 is play slow to play fast. That helps with the articulation and fingers moving together.
Okay,
'Cause
I'm
if
your
they
least
just
favorite kid in beginner class right now. Mr. Lunney, I saw a video because you said DCI and slow, and
Yeah.
I saw an old video of Space Notes of their warm-up stuff where they play the dissonant,
Yeah.
and he does his hands all the different ways in certain sections. It has nothing to do with anything you just said. I just want to say it was really cool.
Okay. You
One
you
time.
It is really cool. You ought to hear it in front of them.
I bet. I would love to do. And I think
It's
actually when one of them I saw, it was Crown. They
Yeah,
surrounded
Carolina
everybody that
Crown.
was in the middle of it.
At
And so
one time,
you're
they were God's horn line. They're not so much anymore. They're still
yeah.
great. So I
Yeah.
don't wanna be lambasted on that, but they're not in their heyday of, what's
So
happened is a tangent. The drill and the needs of DCI has pulled back so much and made it so physically demanding,
right.
it's kinda taken away some of their
Yeah.
strength as a horn line,
Sure.
because the things they're doing, I can't even imagine,
So here we go. Derek, that's great. Let's talk about that after class.
Yeah, let's do that after class. I got lots of stories on that.
Back to 15.
You band geek. Okay, number 15, exercise the rule of 3. 1, you listen to yourself. Number 2, you listen to the person on the left and the person on your right. And if you're on the outside, rule 3 is you listen to the person in front or behind you in the arc. So if I'm on the end of the row and I have a person on my right, I listen to them and I listen to the person behind me.
That
And
makes
so
sense.
that's the rule of 3. There's 3 people. We call them trios. So you say, and we don't go through the whole explanation. We've just done it so many times. I just say rule 15. They go, exercise the rule of 3. Or I'll simply say, listen to your trios. Because if you can't match your trio, there's no chance of us ever sounding good. You got to
Right.
match your trio and balance, blend, intonation, or tuning, and then you as an individual's intonation. Okay. So kind of keep that in mind. That's one that's preached a lot. So I don't think that needs a lot of repetition. Number 16 sounds kind of weird. It goes in with 17 in a way, but 16, this was taught to me by John Simpson. You learn style by listening up into the ensemble. We learn the style of the piece by listening to our trumpets, saxes, flutes, and clarinets. We tune by listening down. We don't assert what we're going to do stylistically by listening to the tubas.
Right.
We listen to the flutes and clarinets. What style are we in? And that's a really broad brush, Derek. You know what I mean? So
I
this
do,
is not
but
100%, but
that's
it
good.
works about 70% of the time. Just say, you guys are not in tune. Listen down to the tubas. We're not all playing the same style. Listen to the clarinets. Copy the clarinets.
Right.
Very rarely do you say, hey, we're not in the right style on this piece. Everybody listen to the euphoniums.
Right.
I'm not saying it can't be that way, but it's usually not because their
But I
parts
think
so different.
the corollary to that is sometimes I've heard my conductors say things like, I want you to listen to how light the style that this flute is playing this melodic passage that you're about to
Yes,
have.
sir.
I need you to be light and melodic like that, please.
Yes, and that's
Even if you're
saying the same thing in a more professional way.
well, I'm just saying I've
That's
never
cool.
really seen that written that way before. It's so awesome.
Yeah. You listen to style up, tuning down.
Absolutely. I got it.
That's all they got to remember. But I love the way you said that though, because that's so true. But if we can get them doing that all the time, then we don't have to point out, listen to the flutes.
Right. Then you could
It's
say
like-
rule 16.
Yeah, we say rule 16. Oh crap, I got to listen to the flutes. Rule 17. This is real generic, but I still love it. The bigger the bell of your horn, the shorter you're going to have to play short notes. Your video froze.
Maybe I just froze in absolute amazement at what you just said.
No, it's chattering. It's starting to move better. I see your eyes wiggling, but there's all this. I can always tell when it's about to happen because the wall behind you, all of a sudden, it like goes into severe focus. And I can see all these weird shapes on it.
Right. Am I back?
It's frozen right now. Nope, not yet.
Because I just got the
It kind of comes and
message.
goes.
I'll have to go tell my wife. Would you quit working right now? You're messing with the broadband.
Yeah, you need to get one of those Wi-Fi boosters.
Yeah.
Have you seen those?
My router's right there.
Your Wi-Fi router's right there. Never mind.
And I'm plugged into it. It's not
Oh my
Wi-Fi.
gosh! Wow. It sucks to live in Midland.
Maybe I have to find a different place to do this, which would.
I know. Hey, your video's back. Life is good
Okay.
again.
So
Hey, yeah. And number 17, Derek, the bigger the bell of your horn, the shorter you're going to have to play the short notes. Think
Okay.
about that for a second.
I
It
am.
makes it real easy for younger students to figure out that if I'm a tuba player, I have to actively think of my short notes shorter than if I were a clarinet. If I play my short note super short on clarinet, it sounds like a "eep." On a tuba, it sounds "daw." It has resonance to it. So it's a real generic rule, which all these are, but man, does it work.
Okay.
You know, bigger the bell, you just remember that. I will tell them that. Bigger bell of your horn, the shorter you're going to have to play short notes.
I'm not going to make disparaging, stereotypical remarks about the people playing the larger bells. We'll just say
Well,
it's the instrument's fault.
it could be a corollary of an IQ factor, but attitude, we won't go there. All the little librarians on clarinet versus the welders that are living in your tuba section that are figuring out how to melt their horns.
I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah. Hey, but you need those welders. I got to get props built by somebody. We need our tubas, you know, so everyone has their skill set. And we already did 18, play slow
Right.
to play fast. Number 19.
Here we are.
And it's San Saba. They tease me because they can say this right now. To this day, they can say this to their beginners because I help work their beginners when they start their horns. A wiggly body, and all the little voices go, make wiggly sounds. You know, so a wiggly body makes wiggly sounds. So if you're playing, you can't be, you know, now if you're a proficient player and really good on your horn, you can emote, you can move. But I'm talking about the kind of unrelenting,
There's a difference
spastic,
between
jerking the horn around and they're moving the bell up and down and they're a beginner and you're going, what are
or
you
they're doing
doing?
this.
Yeah, they're dancing to the music, which I think is kind of cool. But it's like, no, you can dance later. Right now, keep your shoulders still. And the best way I can equate it to them is the same as marching band. I always tell them, keep your nose still. Isn't that funny? It's
never
funny
heard
how
that.
keep your nose still. If you keep your nose still, the rest of your body will follow.
But
You
that's
can't-
exactly what I was going to say. I remember from marching band where your legs and your lower body are moving, but your upper torso and your shoulders have to be fairly still.
Yeah, that's a whole marching band tangent. We'll get into that. I've got a whole, unbeknownst to you right now, I've got a whole series of 6 podcasts set up.
Okay.
We go through teaching marching in a concise, precise way within our budget and time limitations.
Okay.
And part of that is how we separate our lower and upper body and when we don't. So that'll be something. That's a teaser for all you listeners. I know they're just dying on that cliffhanger. You know, it's not quite like Law and Order, but it's a cliffhanger nonetheless. Okay, but you got to convince, especially the young ones, a wiggly body makes wiggly sounds, and it just sounds stupid enough that they remember it. And you can just say it, and they
genius.
repeat it back to you. And even my high school top wind ensemble, even though they could emote, and you could tell like Will Miller could play his horn and he could move, but even as a senior, I could go, "Hey, Will, a wiggly body." And he'd go, makes wiggly sounds. He would repeat that back. Okay. Number 20. And these sound like a lot, but once you explain them, the kids know them. It's cool.
Yeah.
Number 20, fit your sound inside the tuba. Your sound has to fit inside the tuba. So if you play flute, you cannot play louder than the tuba. If the tuba is the picture frame, everyone else are the pictures.
Right.
And the pictures cannot be bigger than the picture frame. It won't fit. And once they understand that, then balance and blend becomes so secondary and easy if they just fit their sound within. For balance, I think the easiest thing I did, just kind of a simple way of fixing balance. I got this from Janet Wilson's dad, Brian. Oh gosh, having an old person moment. Brian Owens.
Okay.
Ryan Owens, fantastic director. And I saw him do this with a band, but he just held up his hands in front of him like he was holding a steering wheel, and he had the band play the chord. He said, "When I move my steering wheel to my left, I want more lows and less highs. If I move it to the right, I want more highs and less lows." And so he would literally, just like a mixing board, the band, you can hear the sound going super bright to super
Right.
dark. Then he'd find exactly the spot. He'd say, "Right here is where you guys sound the best." So then I use that like with my band and doing like region clinics for honor bands, and I'd say I'd figure that out with them in the warm-ups. And then even in the concert we're going, I can go, and it translates in their mind. Oh,
Got to go back to that spot.
now
Right.
they'll go back to that spot. So just no extra cost for that. That's a freebie thrown in for free. It's like the 13th donut
So you're telling
at the
me
donut
that
place.
balance is almost muscle memory when they hear it, when they
Yes,
know what your expectations are
yeah, because they can't hear the whole band. We're lucky if they can actually, if they're listening back to the tubas.
outside their trio. Yeah.
But if you're the tuba player, if the flutes are playing correctly, unless it's a feature, if the whole band's playing full ensemble tutti, then you're not going to hear the flute. you're, you're 4 rows back. You're not
Right.
going to sit there and go, "Hey, I can hear very distinctly the flute obligato part on this Sousa march." No, you're
There
just
might
trying
be a
to,
problem.
yeah, you're just kind of hanging on playing your part. But we
Right.
try to help them do that. And the last one, Rule 21, is super important. Never look like this is hard work. It makes you play with tension in your sound. So you can't make it look like it's hard work. You got to do everything to make it relaxed. When have you ever seen a professional musician looking like they're struggling and working hard to sing or
Right.
play their instrument? It just doesn't happen. But we do it because we live in a society, at least how I grew up. If they tell you to try harder, you put on your try harder face.
I was going to say, it's
You
almost
know,
an oxymoron of, whatever the right term is. You've got to work hard to look relaxed.
That's exactly right. You've got to know your fundamentals because there's no advanced fundamentals, but you got to know your fundamentals to where you can do it so well and so easily that it looks easy to the audience. The last thing we want to do is have the audience feel like this is really hard. Because I'll use marching bands as an example. How many times have you seen a marching band that doesn't really know their drill well enough and their music well enough, but they're at contest? Isn't it uncomfortable?
Yeah. For everyone. Yeah.
I mean, for them, maybe not.
Well,
Because no one's told them. They're just marching and playing their show. I don't mean that any disrespect, but they've been taught how to make a 4th division
yeah,
at that
I get it.
point, or a 5. So
Thanks,
to them,
Bill
it's
Woods.
not an, yeah, if it's a 5, they're not uncomfortable. They just kind of know they're probably kind of not that great, but they're not uncomfortable. But in the audience, you're kind of going, "Oh my gosh, I wish they'd finish up because that's the most uncomfortable thing I've ever seen."
8 minutes of this.
Yeah, my dad said it best. If a band's below a 3, it makes your butt pucker. He was an Air Force sergeant, had
Sure.
no musical ability whatsoever, but he could give bands ratings without any musical ability, and he was spot on. He said if it's a 4 or 5, it makes your butt pucker. It's
That's
just
funny.
uncomfortable. But you know what? With all these rules, if we can post them maybe in a Word document, they can use them. If they want to do their own set of rules, this worked for me.
Yep.
And I know I've got people in my coaching tree that are using the same set of rules and my same set of sight reading things. It doesn't mean that it's the way, but it's a good starting point.
Yep.
It's a good starting point for someone.
No, they're cool. And it's great. And
Yeah.
listen, I'm sitting here looking at this thinking we could write a book, Mike. Realize
Yeah.
it's not, we all know that we all steal from everybody, but to actually put it together and say, Mike Lunney, 21 rules to
Yeah.
make your band better. Because there's things that you can, just like we did, expound on. What do I mean by that? And
Yeah.
then still keep that numbered list there. I think it's cool.
Well, it's
Great.
very efficient in rehearsals.
Right.
You know what I
Awesome.
mean? To be able to say 3, rule 3.
I almost
know-
want to design a music folder that has them printed on the inside of the folder so they can just reference.
There you go.
So-
I have no copyright to this, so feel free to do so.
I would still say it's the Ask Mike 21 rules of.
There you go. Even though I stole them myself from the
We
from the
all do.
crates. Yeah,
There's nothing new under the sun. Thank you, son.
that's right.
Brother, I appreciate you. This is
Hey
cool.
man, it's been fun today.
I I'm looking forward to the 6 marching episodes. That'll be fun.
Once I clean it up and I've got to balance it out so one's not like 4 pages of notes and the other's 1 page. Once I balance it out, I'll send you all of it, and it'll have a full, what I call right or wrong. This is the teaser for all you thousands of listeners out there in Ask Mike Land. The teaser is it'll have one that's the Mike Lunney Bible that's 9 pages long of marching technique.
Okay, cool.
And it gives them I can load it up. Rick can load it for me as a Word doc so the directors can take it and erase what they don't like and add to theirs.
Right.
But it gives them kind of a skeleton to hang everything on. And you have to have a system, man. And you'll be quicker and more concise and efficient if you take time to have a system.
Cool.
Instead of like, hey, we're out of step. What do we do? But that's
Well,
my teaser. But this one's all wrapped up, my friend. It's been
You're
a great
one of my
time.
favorites. I
It's
appreciate
a great
you.
one. Follow the band rehearsal rules. Remember, number 19, a wiggly body.
A wiggly body.
Got to fish
Makes
it.
wiggly sounds.
There you go. That's the main one. 19 is the big rule of the day.
He can be taught.
That's right.